There's a diesel engine built by Chrysler, one that could have redefined American trucking, but you won't find it in history books or museums. It was erased. Its name was the Dodge Diesel 331. Born in 1939, this engine had it all: cutting-edge tech, superior efficiency, incredible durability. It even outperformed gasoline engines in real-world tests. So why did it vanish? Not because it was flawed, not because it failed, but because it was too complex for Chrysler's production lines, too alone in a country not ready for diesel, and too risky for a company focused on mass output. The Dodge 331 wasn't destroyed, it was shelved. And not until nearly 50 years later, when Chrysler partnered with Cummins, did its legacy begin to resurface. To understand why the Dodge Diesel 331 was born and why it failed, we need to rewind to late 1930s America. At the time, diesel engines were practically aliens in the world of American trucking. The market was ruled by gasoline, easy to repair, easy to fuel, and familiar to every mechanic. Diesel, on the other hand, was hard to start, demanded tougher materials, required precise fuel injection, and above all, was extremely complex to manufacture. Only specialist names like Cummins, Mack, or Detroit Diesel dared to enter the diesel game. Most big automakers, even Ford and GM, stuck with gas. But Chrysler was different. This was the company that pioneered hydraulic brakes in 1924, a firm that often swam against the current to prove its engineering might. To them, diesel was the next logical step, not just for fuel efficiency, but for torque, durability under harsh conditions, and lower long-term costs. In 1939, they took a bold leap: design and build a diesel engine entirely in-house, rather than sourcing from others. The goal? Power heavy-duty models like the Dodge T84, T6, and T126, the commercial workhorses of pre-war America. It was a gutsy move, but a risky one. The market wasn't ready, fuel infrastructure was thin, and public trust in diesel was virtually non-existent. And from that very environment, the Dodge Diesel 331 was born. A bold experiment with the ambition to reshape the future of long-haul transport. Rather than relying on existing solutions, their engineers crafted a completely new design, starting with the engine's beating heart: the Lenovo Twin Cyclone combustion system. This was a rare two-stage combustion setup, almost unheard of in its day. When fuel was injected, about 40% ignited in a small pre-chamber, with pressures reaching 2,000 psi. The flame then entered the main chamber, where pressure dropped to around 700 psi. This layered combustion process softened pressure spikes, reduced engine stress, and dramatically improved longevity and efficiency. Each cylinder had its own intake and exhaust ports, improving airflow and burn quality. The fuel system used Bosch injectors at 2,200 psi, driven mechanically by a camshaft-linked pump, ensuring reliable, precise delivery even under harsh working conditions. A heating coil on the intake manifold allowed smooth, cold starts, a small but crucial feature for rigs running cross-country in winter. When it came to maintenance, the engine featured an accessible timing plate that let mechanics adjust injection timing without tearing the motor apart. For roadside repairs, that was game-changing. Every feature Chrysler engineered into the design reflected a commitment to building a diesel engine that could endure the harshest conditions. But beyond all the refinements and innovations, one crucial question still lingered. Could it actually deliver on those promises out in the real world? As the project moved into real-world testing, Chrysler boldly pitted its new engine directly against the old standard. In an internal trial, the diesel-powered Dodge T84 was matched against the gasoline-powered T80, with both trucks operating under identical loads and driving conditions. The results were crystal clear and surprising. At a steady 2,400 RPM, the diesel consumed only 6.6 gallons per hour, while the gas engine burned through a staggering 10.7 gallons. When idling near 800 RPM, the gas engine's consumption remained flat, but the diesel dropped to just 4.3 gallons per hour. This wasn't just a technical advantage, it was a business game changer. For fleet operators running trucks 8 to 10 hours a day, that fuel savings could translate into thousands of dollars per year. In an era where fuel prices could make or break a freight contract, that mattered. Independent distributors and test drivers also praised the engine's performance and cost efficiency. But despite those impressive numbers, one larger question still loomed over the entire project. It proved itself on the road. Fuel savings, torque, and reliability were all there. But away from the highway, a different kind of challenge was brewing. It wasn't performance that broke the project. It was the challenge of building it at scale, a challenge Chrysler couldn't overcome. From the moment production began, engineers realized this engine didn't belong on an assembly line. Every component, from the combustion chamber to the injection system and crankshaft balancing, required ultra-tight tolerances and unique procedures that standard gas engine lines simply couldn't handle. Chrysler was known for large-scale production, but of mass-market gasoline engines. Those were fast to build, standardized, and easily interchangeable. But with the 331, the company had to pause lines, switch tools, retrain workers, and ramp up inspection. Each engine became a one-off project. Worse still, Chrysler didn't build a dedicated diesel line. They tried to force it into the existing workflow. The result? Conflicting schedules, overworked staff, and plummeting output. On top of that, parts like Bosch injectors and high-pressure pumps had to be imported or custom-built, driving up costs, delaying shipments, and making quality control a nightmare. Then, World War II hit. The government redirected the entire industrial base toward the war effort. Chrysler's best engineers were reassigned to tanks, planes, and military engines. Strategic materials like high-grade steel became restricted, and the diesel program, already fragile, was quietly unplugged. There was no press conference, no final memo, no industry write-up. Chrysler's diesel project, once seriously funded, once pitched as the future of trucking, died in silence, as if it had never existed. Even within internal documents, the name Dodge Diesel 331 virtually disappeared a few months after 1942. No revival plans, no updates, no mention of bringing it back post-war. And stranger still, no one in leadership ever explained why. That silence wasn't accidental. It was a product of wartime industrial culture. Every resource had to serve the war effort, and non-essential programs were cut quickly, cleanly, and without emotion. But deeper still, it reflected a failure no one wanted to admit. Chrysler had built a brilliant engine, but had no efficient way to manufacture it. In an industry built on performance and engineering reputation, that kind of misalignment was almost unspeakable. And so, one of the most advanced diesel engines in American history was buried by silence. Not because it was bad, but because it was out of time, out of system, and out of sync with the corporate culture of its day. But behind that silence, time moved on, and America slowly entered a new era, one where diesel would return, but not in the way Chrysler had once imagined. Though no one spoke of the 331 after the war, its quiet influence lingered, a buried lesson, waiting to resurface once the timing was finally right. After 1945, Chrysler returned to familiar ground: high-volume gasoline engines. The diesel project wasn't revived. It didn't make it into long-term strategy documents. The 331st disappeared, from paperwork, from factories, and from memory. But something did change, a hard-earned lesson they never openly admitted: that a good engine means little without the right system to support it. In the decades that followed, Chrysler dabbled in diesel through patchwork attempts. In 1962, they used Perkins engines for select agricultural markets. In 1978, it was Mitsubishi diesels in light-duty trucks. But these were short-lived and lacked a cohesive plan. It wasn't until 1989, nearly 50 years later, that Chrysler truly re-entered the diesel space. This time not alone, but by partnering with Cummins, their former rival, now a global powerhouse in heavy-duty diesel engines. This partnership wasn't just a deal. It was a quiet admission that success in diesel requires more than engineering. It needs long-term commitment, service infrastructure, training, logistics, and the right organizational mindset. Though the 331's name was never revived, its spirit, its lesson, lived on in every Dodge Ram Cummins that followed. Some engines aren't remembered because they succeeded, but because they were failed by the times. The Dodge Diesel 331 is one such story. It didn't die from weakness, it died because it was born too early, in a world that wasn't ready. And yet sometimes, it's the forgotten failures that leave the biggest lessons, that engineering can't survive without the system to support it, and vision means little without long-term commitment. If you believe this story deserves to be remembered, leave a comment below. Should Chrysler have stuck with diesel from the very beginning? And don't forget to like, share, subscribe to support the channel and discover more forgotten legends from the world of engines.